My 26 female, mom passed away a few years ago. During that time, we discovered that my dad had been cheating on her with a girl my age. His whole family disowned him and cut contact with him, except for me. I guess that at the time, I wasn't ready to let go of both my parents at the same time. But over these last 5 years, I've been able to let go to the point I only see them, twice or thrice a month. It's like I have no family left. Don't get me wrong, I also blamed the girl for what happened. But the responsibility toward my mom and me was my dad's, not hers. They eventually had my half-sister, toddler. From what I've heard and know, my dad and his wife are living paycheck to paycheck, on a budget, and in a rental home since everyone in the family changed their will. Both my grandparents and my mom. My dad won't get the house because it was an eventual inheritance from my grandparents. But since she died first, I'm the sole benefactor from both sides, since my paternal grandparents skipped my dad. Now, 2 days ago, I went to visit him because it was his birthday, and he said he and his wife wanted to talk to me. I was like, yeah, okay. Then they said they wanted me to be the legal guardian of my half-sister in case something happened to them, mainly because I'll have the means for it. My dad's wife's parents can only care for her, but to a minor extent, and I'll have the money needed to take care of an innocent child. I said no, not for the money, but because I didn't want to. I'm not close to my sister, and currently I don't see nor want myself taking care of a child, much less one that is reminiscent of my mom's last heartbreak. So I said I was willing to pass along a monthly check, like a child support payment, but less than that since she's not my kid. But that was the only thing I was willing to do. My dad cried, saying that she was his baby, and I could be a good sister like I was raised to be, but I just laughed and said that he was no one to talk about good and wrong, and he and his wife should have thought of that before cheating. His wife called me a monster and kicked me out of the house. I left. Later that night, I sent my dad a text, informing him of my decision to cut ties with him completely, and that from now on, will be no contact unless it's an emergency. He's begging me to reconsider, but I don't know if I'm right or wrong. Not the idiot. They were just getting started. The first step was to get you to agree to be her guardian if something happened to them. Once they have established that you care about your half-sister and want to help her, then they'll ask you to buy her extra clothes for her birthday or take her school shopping. Then they'll ask for help because they're short on rent and must ensure their half-sister isn't homeless. Run and don't look back. I agree with everything you said, especially the asking for money and inheritance. It won't be long until they need a place to live and want to move into OP's home. Hun, your dad is with a girl your age. Got her pregnant while she was like 20? She'll be around for a good while, hopefully. Who knows? Does she not have a family either? So they can deal with whatever your father and his wife have going on. It's even better. When OP's paternal grandparents pass, they would ask for the inheritance house because it was supposed to be Dad's anyway. OP, your father has not been responsible his whole life and wants to stick you with the half-sister. How about no? Send her off to your dad's wife. It's her responsibility. It's her family's bloodline. Honestly suspicious, like they want to dump the kid on you and run away. Money. OP is the one who will be inheriting everything. Dad gets nothing. This is just a way for him to get a toe in the door. OP, good on you for not getting caught on a slippery slope. Looking past the fact that your dad was cheating in your mom's final moments, he's an idiot. He's trying to put the responsibility onto you and using you. See how you only talk to him twice or thrice a month. He comes to see you because he wants a favor. You don't need to take care of that child at all. I, 18 female, teach preschool and babysit on the side. I'm a pretty well-known babysitter in my town and the neighboring town, and I'm booked through November. I can charge a little more than other babysitters in the area because I have a lot of experience. I've worked at summer camps, babysat, and have taught since June. I'm CPR and first aid certified, and the whole teaching thing makes my parents think you're a lot more qualified. In reality, I just called the preschool, asked if they were hiring, scheduled my interview for the next day, and was hired on the spot after a 10-minute interview. There are also only a few babysitters available because I live in a small town, population 7,000, and most teens don't work. I babysit a lot of my students. One of my students' moms texted me the other day and asked if I could babysit for a week in December. Of course, I said yes and set up a time to call her to talk about my rates and availability. This woman has 4 kids, all under 5, and her younger 2 aren't potty trained, so I told her I'd charge $40 per hour. I know this woman has a history of underpaying her babysitters, so I went a little higher than what I normally charge in preparation for some negotiation. She told me she pays her current babysitter $15 and asked if I could do that. I said no, and she started acting like I needed the babysitting job because teachers are underpaid and I only teach 15 hours a week. We ended the call and she called me the next day, offering $20 and saying this was my last chance. I told her then she clearly needed a babysitter more than I needed this job and not to call me back unless she was willing to pay at least $35. She told me she'd tell the other preschool parents how rude I was and hung up. I know for a fact she did tell some parents because one texted me later that day saying she heard I have an opening for a week in December. My grandma says I should have been more willing to negotiate, but my mom says she should have either paid my rate or left me alone. I'm feeling kind of bad about the whole thing, so I wanted to know if I was the idiot. Not the idiot. If my 18-year-old daughter came home and told me she did the same thing, I would treat her to a special dinner. Many girls and women struggle with knowing and embracing their value, so I think it's amazing that you do. I wouldn't have blamed you for going up in price simply because she was so difficult. Oh, I'm sorry. I charge a 25% markup whenever parents are condescending to me. I read this and was like, wait, this lady comments on teachers being underpaid, so she wants to underpay OP again? That's nice of her. And I had to laugh that another parent heard her bad-mouthing you, and their reaction was, OMG, OP has availability. I'd better jump right on that. That shows you're a good babysitter asking for a reasonable rate. She was attempting to manipulate you into taking an offensively low hourly wage. 4 kids, 2 in diapers, with the super shady way she pitched it? Clearly, everyone is happy with you based on their request, and that should be very telling over one bad apple. Just be grateful you didn't take the job, because I suspect she's the kind of person who would find something wrong to try and get a free job and badmouth you. I, female 29, live in Australia. I moved to Australia 5 years ago to move in with my Australian long-distance boyfriend at the time. He's now my husband, and I'm now officially an Australian citizen. I'm originally from Britain, and the rest of my family lives there. My husband and I own a house with a spare bedroom, and over the past 4 years, I've allowed my older sister, Becky, 35, and her husband and kids to vacation at our home, except during 2020, when there were travel restrictions. They are in love with Australia and are very grateful to visit here. This year, they visited last month for 2 weeks. Becky and her husband took the spare bedroom, and their kids had air mattresses in the living room. They had a great time, and it was all very pleasant. But the day after they left, I noticed that Becky and her husband completely trashed the spare room. There were food wrappers, crumbs, and plastic bottles all over the floor, food stains all over the bed, weird marks on the furniture that weren't there before, and an awful rotting smell in the room that we couldn't get rid of. I texted Becky the pictures of the room and said that this was not okay. Becky said she was sorry and said she and her husband were in holiday mode and just wanted to relax. I told her that my husband and I weren't her maids and said that she and her family were not allowed to come back next year. Becky said I'm being irrational and that it was just a little mess. I told her I didn't care and that it was mine and my husband's home and we didn't want it to be treated that way. Becky got our parents involved and they accused me of thinking that I was better than everyone and said that I was being unfair to Becky. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. While they're on vacation mode, you're not. That's your home. You bought those furnishings in that home with your hard-earned money. She behaved like a pig and left a sty. If she did that to a hotel room, she would be forced to pay for damages. Anyone complaining can pay for your sister's future hotel bill. LOL, not wanting your place trashed means you think you're better than everyone? I guess we know who the golden child is. She's old enough to know it's really rude to trash someone's place, especially when she's staying for free. But it seems like even her children have better manners than her. Even when I'm staying in a hotel, I try to clean up my mess a bit. But, unfortunately, she's an entitled idiot and won't even acknowledge she was wrong. So no, she doesn't get to stay with you again. If she wants to get others involved, send them the pics and ask. So if she did this to your home, then you'd be okay? 'Cause if so, I'll come visit and stay with you and do the same since it's okay. Holiday mode only works if you've paid someone for housekeeping. Guaranteed that Becky didn't give the parents the full story. Oh, we just left some empty bottles that we forgot to grab on our way out, etc. My 32 female ex-husband, Mark, 34, and I have 3 children together. 2 boys and 1 girl. They're all tweens, triplets. Our daughter's name is Ellie, and she's always been much more sensitive than her brothers. She just behaved differently than they did, and in the beginning I dismissed it as the boys being identical and her being the fraternal triplet. But with time I realized it was more than that. Ellie was eventually diagnosed as autistic when she was 4. She's a very sweet and very quiet kid. She doesn't talk very much, and she absolutely hates too much sound. Anytime we have to go somewhere, I bring her noise-canceling headphones and a few of her favorite toys, just in case the headphones don't help. Lately, when she has a meltdown, it dissolves into a panic attack, and then she'll just be completely nonverbal for a day or 2. I hate seeing her go through that, so I do everything to help her manage and avoid her triggers when possible. Mark thinks I coddle her too much, and that my efforts to help her avoid meltdowns and sensory overloads are actually just giving in to her tantrums. He's gotten better about the mindset since his girlfriend Marissa, 33, moved in with him, but sometimes he and I still argue about it. It's supposed to be his week with the kids, so I was just at home catching up on some cleaning when one of my sons called me on Marissa's cell. He said that Ellie had shut herself in her closet and refused to come out, and their dad was getting upset with her about it. So I asked him to put his dad on the phone. Mark immediately told me he could handle Ellie's fits and that our son shouldn't have grabbed Marissa's phone to call me. Still, I told him I at least wanted to talk about what had triggered Ellie to begin with, and I wanted to talk to her as well, just to see if she was okay. He said Ellie was refusing to talk and that he'd call me back when she decided to start speaking again. As soon as she hung up on me, I grabbed my keys and drove over to his house. Marissa let me in, and I went upstairs where he was lecturing Ellie through the door, and I could hear her sniffling. Mark looked angry to see me, but the boys were standing there, so he didn't say anything about it. Eventually, I got Ellie to come out of the closet, and she burst into tears and begged me to take her home. She wouldn't let go of my hand and didn't want to go anywhere near her dad. I knew she'd probably lock herself away again if I left without her, so I told Mark that if she was feeling better in the morning, I'd bring her back. He texted me a few times after we left, saying I ruined his time with Ellie, and the reason she hates it over there is that I always come to her rescue. I told my mom about it, and she thinks I shouldn't interfere with the kids when they're with their dad, even if there's an issue, because I'd hate it if he did the same thing to me. Not the idiot, mate. He's abusing her. He's refusing to take care of her disability and trying to force her to act normal. He's verbally abusing her whenever she has a meltdown. I wouldn't be surprised if that's why she has panic attacks. If you send her back, you will be a huge idiot, and you'll be an enabler in her abuse. Catering to a child's disability as a parent is not optional. It's a need, and not to is neglect. If your child isn't in therapy, she needed to be yesterday, and you need to bring this up with a therapist. Imagine if Ellie had to use a wheelchair, and then her dad refused to build a ramp and yelled at her when she couldn't use the stairs. And then when you suggest building a ramp, he says that'll just give in to her neediness and make her less likely to learn how to walk. That's what her dad's doing to her now. It's just harder to visualize the obstacles because we can't see them. Dad is a huge idiot. Mom needs to figure this out. I know going to court is expensive, but it's cheaper than the permanent toll on her child. It'll be cheaper than the cost of all the therapy she'll need if she's forced into this environment. He is your ex for a reason. He's not going to magically be a different person when interacting with your children. Let Mark be angry because he's angry he doesn't have permission to hurt her. Be your child's guardian and guard them. My husband and I have different tastes when it comes to food. That's perfectly fine. However, lately, whenever we go out to a restaurant, we both order different dishes. Then he suddenly asks to eat from my dish and would throw a fit if I refuse. He's done this several times, and I snapped at him and told him to stop asking and order from the same dishes if he wanted it so bad. Last night, we went out for dinner and ordered different dishes. Before we made the order, I asked if he was sure about the dish he picked, and he said yes. The food arrived and each of us had our plates and started eating. Literally minutes later, he asked if he could eat from my dish. I looked at him like, "Are you serious right now?" He went on about how he couldn't resist the dish's looks and wanted to try it. I refused and said no. I kept eating and he kept pushing until I blew up, and he suddenly got quiet. He then got up and walked out. He was furious with me and picked an argument at home when I returned. He said that I acted petty and that all he asked for was a few bites from my meal, and I chose to make a scene and yell and embarrass him instead. We're not speaking to each other right now because of what happened. I feel crappy about it, and I think I could have just let him have some of the food instead of choosing that silly hill to die on. Edit. We pay for our meals separately. Joey doesn't share food. LOL. That's a reference from the show Friends if you don't know, but to be serious, you've already stated your preferences and boundaries. You don't like it when he asks for food off your plate. If anything, it's silly and rude of him to continue to ask when he knows you don't like it. It's kind of petty though on your part. Most people don't care to share or offer a bite. So if that's all he's asking for is a bite, you're the idiot. But if he wants a larger share of your food, definitely not the idiot. It's the fact that he throws a tantrum when you say no that makes him the idiot. However, your marriage doesn't sound like it's all put together yet. Not gonna lie, kinda weird to know that you pay for your meals separately, but also that he's childish enough to walk out when he doesn't get his way. Everyone who doesn't understand, let me explain to you. Partners who do this after being told no don't want the food. They just want to take it from you. It's a test to see how far they can push your boundaries. It seems so simple until you look at how it blew up into a fight. If it were so innocent, a fight wouldn't have happened. This is a power play, and he's furious that she isn't giving in. This sounds like a symptom of a larger problem. Do you even like each other? Recently, my friend's husband did the same thing because he wanted to cheat. He did everything to make his wife crazy and then told her that they must separate for a while due to her bad character. He lied, of course, that this had nothing to do with cheating. He just needed time to think. But he cheated with at least 2 people that my friend knows about, maybe more. Since this food issue is a relatively new development, I have to wonder if it's something like this, because it sounds very intentional.